Life is unfair. This became the running motif in Femecia's life because in her world, people receive magic blessings at the age of 5. Blessings ranked by number of stars, with 5 stars being the highest and most coveted in their society. She was blessed with the skill to tame monsters, only with 0 stars, a completely and utterly worthless rank, as she couldn't even tame small, meekly animals. The acceptance in the village she grew up in became rejection. The love she received from her parents became hate. She was forced to flee from her hometown while being chased by bounty hunters employed by her village. She changes her name to Ivy to take on a new identity. She cuts her hair so she can pass as a boy to avoid the hunters. She hasn't given up on life because there is something special about her. She was reincarnated from our world into the girl she is now, and the voice of her past gives her advice on how to live and who to be. She eventually meets a tiny slime who she befriends, named Sora. And now the weakest duo is on a quest to reach the capital, where she's been told she'll receive the purpose she's been missing. This is a heartfelt tale of the weakest tamer began a journey to pick up trash. So let's get started and watch the story unfold. We see Ivy as she runs into the forest. She sets up pots and pans to clang in the trees when someone comes by. She pulls some hidden bags out from a secret area that only she knows about and stares with a look of wonder as they get sucked into one of the bags. She straps all of the bags onto herself and packs in other various items. As she walks out with all of her wares, she says to herself she gave up on happiness a long time ago, being an unwanted child who was cast away by her parents. She tries to test the blade she's holding, but ends up tumbling and rolling backwards. If only she had important skills like running or hiding, but if she did, then of course, none of this would have happened to her in the first place. She wonders if she had done something in her past life to have been cursed so badly in this one. She slides down the hill, happy to find a dumping ground. She tugs on a bag handle from the dumpster to almost get pierced by several thrown away spears. Inside of a bag, she's delighted to find a new jacket and a map that might make her journey easier. But even with the positive outlook, she has intrusive thoughts to remind her she's just an unwanted child living off of trash like a hobo. Ivy then sees a man who is a monster tamer. He whistles to call in slimes to feed on the trash, and as she watches them melt the garbage away, she wonders if her past life would have thought of monsters as cute. She runs away to hide as the man comes towards the back of the dumpster. She stares completely frightened as the man mentions there's a bounty on this little girl's head, where the head of her village wants her back dead or alive. She flees further, having restless nights, and while crossing a marsh, a strong gust blows and she finds dozens of slimes jumping around her. She runs away with them chasing after. She makes it to the forest and stumbles backwards with more slimes appearing before her, falling down a cliff with her fall broken by the branches of a large tree. She heals herself with some potions, hoping the chase on her has ended. She then makes it to some beautiful stream water, where she dives in to bathe. Afterwards, she cuts her hair and puts on clothes to disguise herself as a boy, staring out into the water, ready to begin her new life. She comes upon a tiny slime on a leaf that she actually finds cute. Then, when she goes through her monster compendium, it turns out to be extremely rare, only being known as the weakest slime with a disintegrating existence. She can't help but rejoice because the slime is just as weak and useless as she is. Finally, someone for her to relate to. A small breeze blows, dragging the small slime away, and looking at the compendium again, Ivy learns the slime can disappear from even a heavier gust or even the slightest touch. As she stares at it being stuck or merely being put upside down, Ivy gently puts the slime right side up using both her hands, and learns from the book that it's likely this slime will die within a day, making the slime very sad. Then, the wind blows a blade of grass that knocks over the weak, useless slime, and Ivy chases after it, barely catching the slime before it falls in the water. She then spends her time with the slime, as much as possible before its inevitable disintegration. She talks to it, mentioning her thoughts on how gods don't play fair. They make people who are happy, but also people who are miserable like her and this slime. The humans in this world, known as Ordogas, all receive skills when they turn 5 years old. Her father has 2-star carpentry skills. Her mother has 2-star needlework and 1-star mending skills. However, no one knows what kind of skills they receive or how many stars they'll be in value until they appear. But everyone's future is decided by those skills and the number of stars. At the age of 5, Ivy received the taming skill, which is the ability to tame monsters and win them over. But sadly, she was born starless, a tamer who cannot tame a single monster, useless and outcasted by society. And her family, they stopped giving giving her food and a house to sleep in. She slowly found herself with no place to belong. However, she does have one thing that others don't: memories of her past life. She's apparently a human who was reincarnated here from a different world, but most of the memories come hazy and tend not to be of much use either. They often even whisper things to her she doesn't quite understand, like proverbs. The only person who was still nice to Ivy was the fortune teller. She had given Ivy books that taught her many different things, and even this magic bag that can store many items. But unfortunately, the fortune teller died recently, so there's no one left in this world for Ivy, and everyone from the village is trying to find and kill her, even though she had done nothing wrong. Is being starless that bad? Is it something that she should truly be hated for? Is the world rejecting Ivy's very existence? She then stares at the slime, remarking on how it's fated to disappear within a single day. The world just isn't fair. The next morning, she wakes up, scurrying to find the little slime, saddened by the only thing she could relate to, disappearing. Even though she thought she was used to being lonely, she couldn't help but tear up. She starts going through her bags, remembering how the fortune teller told her to march towards the royal capital. Then, when she checks her map, she's relieved to find the slime still alive. She learns from her compendium that in order to tame a monster, she must first give it some of her magical energy. If the monster accepts it, it'll begin to glow, and the monster must then receive a name during that phase. She wonders if she can really do this, being starless and all. She then imbues the slime with magic and gives it the name Sora, meaning sky, to represent the blue sky above her. With the name being a success, she's excited to journey with her cute little friend, embracing her own name of Ivy, the plant that thrives even when it's stomped on. The next day, a mouse wanders in a little contraption. It's the 10th one that Ivy's caught. She's overjoyed to have field mice for a meal tonight. She wraps the mice in some leaves and stores them in her bag for later. She points on her map to where she currently is, the area of her hometown, Latomi Village, and notes that the royal capital is way further on the left past this map, so she wants to stop in the town of Towa before the map cuts off. She has to catch Sora again before the breeze blows him away. She then gets startled by some scurrying and decides to run up a tree to hide, and she's horrified to see a large herd of huge ants, but they don't notice her at all. After they leave, she holds up Sora, wondering if he seems a little bigger, and after noticing she's got a cut on her cheek, she heals herself with some potions, but can't help but think that she should have more potions, and wonders where the rest went. As she wanders, she sees a wanted poster with her face on it. She notices the reward is 500 Dao, which is a big reward where they're from. She wonders why she could be worth so much. Then her past self whispers that it's because she's a wanted fugitive, which doesn't make Ivy any happier since it makes her sound like a villain. She goes to take a second wanted poster down, and is flabbergasted to see their ugly depiction of her, and it makes her pretty mad, so she rips it up. However, when seeing her beautified one, she remarks, "Yeah, this one? It's probably me." But somehow, it seems Sora may disagree. They finally arrive in the next town, with Ivy feeling a little envious over all the townsfolk and their everyday magic. She sees a butcher shop and thinks about selling her field mice for some cash. She gets nervous and decides to walk away, but the butcher comes over as he can smell the mice due to his own level 2 odor skill. He has Ivy show him the mice and is excited over the fresh cuts of meat. He buys them for 100 Dao, explaining that most people are bringing him bigger game these days, so he'd be happy to buy the smaller meats from Ivy at any time. With a pocket full of cash, Ivy gets a little hungry looking at the bread shop, but she's too nervous, so she walks away at first. But then she comes back, with the shop owner asking what she would like to buy. Ivy asks what she can afford with 100 Dao, as it turns out she's never used money before. So the owner explains Ivy could buy the entire shelf of bread with 100 Dao. She then decides to buy a couple things and takes off happily with the delicious treats. That evening, she sits atop a tree, very eager to eat. Then, she splits off half for Sora. As she enjoys herself, she learns that Sora can't eat the bread, but she can't comprehend what he might like eating at all. The next day, she is overjoyed to find a mound of trash. She comes upon baskets of potions, but they're all expired and discolored. But when she sets them down, Sora finds a use by absorbing the potion bottles whole. This surprises Ivy because absorbing inorganic material is usually a skill only held by high-level, rare slimes. She decides to test this with another piece of trash, but it seems Sora is only interested in potion bottles, but not red ones, just blue potion. They continue their days in the village, with Ivy bringing more mice meat to the butcher to make money and buying more bread to enjoy, then bathing in the nearby river every day. As they eat their meals for the day, Ivy wishes she could stay in the village forever. The people here treat her nice, unlike the memories of her father who discarded her like the trash she's become more endearing of. The next day, she heads into the village, and when she sees some adventurers, she thinks of the man who was hunting her for a bounty, and she runs away. She runs past the butcher, who is eager to buy some mice, but she becomes frightened to see her wanted poster on the shop's stall. She then runs to the bread shop, where the bread lady baked her favorite bread to give her some. However, Ivy runs away again, feeling worse after seeing a second poster. She cries that night, because she knows she must leave the village that's been treating her so well, and embraces Sora, who keeps her company while she sleeps. The next day, when she ventures out, she comes to crossroads, unsure of where to go. She decides to go grab a bite to eat, since she was too scared to pick up supplies in the town. She's delighted to come upon a golden apple tree, but now isn't so happy to see it's a monster that feasts on adventurers. Ivy tries to flee, but scrapes by with a vicious attack on her wrist. Then, with Ivy lying on the ground, ready to pass out from the pain, Sora begins to light up, and Ivy can't help but think, that's right, slimes eat people as well. We see a man carving wood. He hears a baby crying, so runs upstairs to the midwife holding their healthy little baby girl. The man's wife, Fulfe, asks him what name he should give her. He responds, Femecia, as the baby giggles, embraced by the love of the mother at her bedside. A few years later, Femecia would grow into a kind and wonderful girl, bringing her father and older brother lunch as they worked hard for their family. As the three enjoyed their tasty bread lunch, Femecia nearly choked from eating too fast, so her father used his magic to fill her cup with water so she could clear her throat properly. Even though her brother would scold her, Femecia would continue to eat wildly, claiming it's because she's a growing girl, which caused her father to laugh. His family brought him so much joy. That evening, Femecia would come home to her mother and older sister, Vasila, preparing dinner. Her brother, Phaeton, teased her for saying she better start being able to use everyday magic. So Femecia retorted that she'll definitely be able to soon, with her mother gently reminding her that everyone develops at their own pace. And even without magic, Femecia is already admirably helping out as much as she can. However, Vasila comments that's not what their mom said to her when she was 4 years old. She was being told by their mother every day to hurry up and be able to use magic already, with the mother replying, huh? Is that really how it was? Parents, am I right? Dinner is set for the family to enjoy. A big stew was the main course. The father proudly explains that since Vasila has the soothing skill, the food is enhanced with the ability to cure fatigue. Then the family enjoys their peaceful dinner together. The family continues to work on things throughout the evening. The father mentions the house he'd been building should be finished by the end of the month, but he couldn't complete it without his lovely family that was truly blessed in this world. Their son Phaeton made the furniture with his 3-star furniture making skills, and the mother helped with the furniture cushions using her 2-star sewing skills. Their family was truly blessed with talent for the homemaking business. As the mother worked, a tear came to her eye, which startled Femecia. Turns out, the mother had been stitching bridal wear for the shoemaker's daughter, and this made her realize that Femecia and her older sister Vasila will be married off someday too. Vasila is eager to have a beautiful dress, while the father says it's too soon. But no, the mother knows the time always comes faster than you'd expect. After all, Femecia is almost 5 years old, which makes Femecia excited for birthday presents. However, there's something even more important coming that day, her skill. The father remarks that as long as a person has a skill, they'll always find a place to work. The mother adds, what sort of skill and how many stars? No one knows until they receive their skills from the gods. The type of skill and number of stars will determine where you work, where someone like the older brother Phaeton, who has 3-star skills, is highly desired, unlike Vasila, who is only 1 star, which he constantly teases her for. The mother then asks Femecia what skill she'd like. From very early on, Femecia had always wanted to be a tamer, to befriend dragons, griffins, and all sorts of monsters, causing her brother to laugh as he felt her reasoning to be ridiculous. The father reminded Femecia that skills are bestowed by the gods so its people can live in this world, causing Femecia to pout, since he also told her it's not for her to make friends with monsters. However, he handed her a horse he made with his 2-star carpentry skills in order to cheer her up. The family hears a knock on the door. Who could it be at this hour? Turns out, it's Mistress Luba, the fortune teller. She showed up because it's nearly time for Femecia to be gifted with her skill, and has come to offer prayer of good fortune. The fortune teller then thinks back to when Femecia was much younger. The mother had been concerned because Femecia started speaking incredibly well since the age of 2, and that sometimes Femecia would say strange things. The mother couldn't help but feel concerned, wondering if her daughter would be able to use magic someday. Femecia then suddenly burst out, Magic? This world has magic? Something that Luba affirms to little Femecia. Femecia jumps with joy, then says, what? Reincarnated into another world, which leaves the mother concerned over the strange words her daughter had just spoken. Luba then reassures the mother, it's fine. Femecia will grow into a very intelligent child. Luba then makes an excuse so the mother can step away for a second. That way, she can privately inquire about Femecia. She tells Femecia that if people learn she has memories of her past life, things will become difficult for her, so she mustn't tell anyone about them. She must keep it a secret, even from her own mother. Back in the present, Luba tells the family Femecia is sure to be gifted with a wonderful skill. Femecia wonders if foresight tells Luba what skill Femecia will get. However, with Luba's skill being only 1 star, she can't see quite that far. Phaeton then mocks Luba's 1 star, causing the father to scold his bratty son. After all, without her predictions, the village wouldn't know when they'd be able to harvest the Zaro fruit. We finally reach the day of Femecia's 5th birthday. Her parents sit with her as the village priest says to them, today is the day to receive her blessings from God. Blessings that will grant her the joy of hard work, happiness at the wonder of living, and divine protection of truth. Femecia walks up to touch the sacred water. Then the priest uses his magic to receive the divine message. Femecia is blessed with the Tamer skill, the ability to win monsters over to her, which got both her and her parents excited. This was going exactly how Femecia wished. However, this dream would become a nightmare, as the priest gave a very disturbed look at the reading. The water burst before them, meaning this child possesses a starless Tamer skill. Her parents protested. Her father shouted, this must be some kind of mistake. My daughter couldn't possibly be starless. But the priest assured him, this is a divine message. Mistakes simply aren't possible, and that any further talk like this is blasphemy. As the priest walked away, muttering under his breath that this girl has been abandoned by the gods, Femecia hears a whisper from her past life saying, this is an impossibly hard mode video game. Back at home, the family sits completely depressed and disheveled. The father slams the table, having been drinking non-stop. The mother tells him he's had too much, but he ignores her, wondering how this could all have possibly happened. Both him and his wife have stars. Their oldest son and daughter have stars. Why does Femecia have none? Femecia tries to ask him something, but he shouts back at her, telling her not to speak because the starless have been abandoned by the gods. He truly questioned how a starless could be born in his family, which made Femecia stare in disbelief, with the man before her no longer having the love and warmth provided she had always known. Fulfe tells him he's going too far as he quickly gets up. He grabs the wooden horse he gave to Femecia and slams it on the ground, shouting, what's the point of being a tamer if she has no stars? He wonders if Femecia is even really his daughter, and with these harsh words, Fulfe falls to the ground in tears. Femecia tries to console her mother, but Phaeton grabs her, shouting not to touch his mom. Femecia tries to ask her older sister for help, but Femecia only gives her a nasty look, with Femecia screaming that her brother is hurting her, begging him to stop. He throws her on the ground and yells at her to get out. She looks back at him, completely lost in everything that's transpired, but then she runs out the door. Femecia then walks through the village like a lifeless zombie, all while the villagers speak in hushed whispers about the starless child abandoned by God. The village head announces the appearance of a starless to be a horrible omen of disaster. He tells the villagers they must prepare against the misfortunes and devote their abilities to the good of the village. As Femecia watches them, the other kids in the village throw rocks at her, causing her to bleed. She runs, only to be faced with more villagers staring at her with hateful eyes. She ran all night through a forest to get away from them, wondering why this was happening, until she tripped. She can't go home anymore. Her past self whispers there's going to be a witch hunt, which makes Femecia clench her fist as it rains. She says to herself she's not a witch. As she wanders in the rain depressed and cold, she thinks to herself she's getting hungry too. She comes across some berries and eats what she can, but still shivers from the sopping cold. She breaks a stick and tries to use magic for the first time to make a fire, but it goes out. As she tries to light it a second time, she suddenly passes out. She wakes up to the fortune teller who helped warm her with the fire and prepared food to eat. Luba tells Femecia it seems she has less magical energy than most people, and that if she ever runs out, it will put her life at risk. She then tells Femecia that her foresight skill showed this was going to happen to her, just not the way it was going to happen. But she never imagined Femecia to be starless, as she hands food over for Femecia to enjoy. After dinner, she hands a magic bag to Femecia, and even though it's an older model, bottle, it will still be able to fit a lot of things in it, and also books with knowledge about various useful things. Luba then says Femecia is destined to take a journey to see the world and broaden her perspective, that she must head to a town neighboring the royal capital and find people that she can trust, and that when she does, she must tell them everything, even that she's a starless. That way, she can find true friends who will accept her no matter what. As Femecia learns various skills from Luba, she asks why Luba doesn't hate her like the rest of the village. Luba explains that long ago, no one had skills or stars, but still worked and lived happily. So not having skills isn't a bad thing, even though she doesn't know how things ended up like this. 3 years later, we find Femecia in front of a huge trash pile. She wonders if the planks are left over from her older brother Phaeton's furniture making, storing some away to use for firewood later. She then stares at some potions, which are used but still enough to be stored away for later. She got a huge haul today. She catches a mouse and enjoys a skewer from it afterwards. She thinks it's been a while since she'd last seen the fortune teller and wonders what she's doing. She then senses the presence of people coming and puts her fire out and hides to see 2 men from the village. She has a bad feeling and wants to know why people are coming after her, so she decides to spy on them in town. She hears 2 women talk about how it was a shame that Luba had died from sickness recently, which surprised her. She sees her father report to the village head that he still hasn't been able to find Femecia, and the village head remarks that Femecia must have caught wind of what they were trying to do. The head tells Femecia's father that starless only bring misfortune, and her father agrees, saying starless should not be allowed to exist in this world. This broke her emotionally, hearing the words from the same man that used to love her, causing her to fall into despair. She even imagines her mother saying, "It would have been better if she'd never been born." The head of the village talks about the sad loss of the village fortune teller, saying the cause of her death was none other than the curse of the starless, and that because Luba ignored his warnings and looked after Femecia, she also became forsaken by the gods. They cannot afford to leave Femecia unchecked, as their village will one day be struck by calamity. And then he commands them all to capture and kill her. Femecia shrunk in fear at the harsh bounty being placed on her life. She ran as the villagers chased after her, with her mother restraining her. As her father delivered the finishing blow, she woke up under the stars, remembering that Sora was going to eat her. She then stares back at the sky and peacefully accepts her fate, because she's an unwanted child anyways. Next, she finds herself awakened by Sora nudging her. He bounces on top of her, and that's when Femecia notices her wound is completely healed. She thanks him as she learned he wasn't trying to eat her. He was actually just healing her. And this is when he began to speak. So Femecia rejoices and laughs at her little slime that can only say, "Poo-poo?" She may be an unwanted child, but none of that matters, as long as she has him. So maybe she'll decide to live just a little longer. Another day comes and we see Ivy resting peacefully. A droplet of morning dew falls and hits Sora, waking him up. He spams his poo-poo phrase over and over again, like an alarm clock, so Ivy grabs him to turn him off. Of course, she would have no idea what that even is in this world, but her past life does. She pets the energetic little Sora on this fine morning, and she cheers, eager for the 2 of them to continue their journey. Berries and blue potions. Ivy prays to say gratitude for the fine morning meal. The 2 enjoy themselves, but Ivy is surprised at how much energy her little slime seems to have now. She grabs him close and remarks on how much sturdier he is than before. Is this really the same disintegrating slime that she knew? Maybe he's grown after consuming all of those blue potions. Well, none of that really matters, as long as he's healthy. Ivy begins to think about the next village they'll be entering. She's been low on meat supplies since leaving the last village, so she'll need to hunt more mice to sell. But her past self tells her if she cooks the mice she catches, she'll actually save more money. Which would be a good idea, except the smell of food would eventually attract monsters. So even with a higher cost, buying dry meat from the store is safer. Then suddenly, Sora keeps shouting his phrase over and over. He's finished all the potions and he wants even more, leaving Ivy to wonder what she's going to do. Well, if you were all wondering what's next, allow me to remind you the name of the anime. Ivy is excited to find a large pile of trash. She starts digging through, hoping to find Sora some food, but instead gets distracted by the hand-me-down. She remembers she needs to stay on track, so she looks around some more and finds a big pile of used potions. Comparing the blue potions, this one looks new, and this one looks a little too old. But the age of the blue potion doesn't matter to Sora. He'll eat them all. He then consumes a red one, something he wouldn't consume before. So she tries testing a green potion that acts as a painkiller, and a purple potion that removes curses, but Sora doesn't want either of those ones. Her past self then advises her to try mixing the colors, so she combines red and blue to make the limitless purple. Purple potion, and Sora eats that too. However, he wants nothing to do with a regular purple potion. They then head on their way with Sora bouncing and rolling around, and Ivy is so happy because she thought she'd always travel alone, always live alone, but now she'll always have Sora. She gets excited to see some berries and gushes over the delicious taste. She tries to offer some to Sora, but he isn't too excited. Later that evening, the two enjoy dinner, but Sora eats potions non-stop, all the way to the point that Ivy is concerned she won't have any potions left for herself. So her past self gives the advice, if you're sleeping, you can't be eating. Ivy takes the advice to heart, and atop a tree branch, she begins to tell Sora a bedtime story, her favorite one from when she was little. Long, long ago, the world was at war. One day, the king gathered together magicians who could see the future, and had them all make predictions about how the war would end. The future they saw was the end of the world, a truly terrifying sight. The magicians discussed their visions, and then, in order to protect the world, they cast powerful magic. No one knows what that magic was, and no one can use it now. The only one who can is a child who comes from another world, as it's a forgotten magic. Magic that is vast and scary and quiet, lonely and untouchable. Dewdrop falls again, waking up Sora like the little alarm he is. So Ivy pats him to make him stop. However, she gets upset with herself waking up to find Sora had already eaten all of her potions. She nabs some mice in a mousetrap. Just kidding, she accidentally catches a big snake. She's reluctant to deal with it, but she knows it might still fetch her some money if she sells it. So she grabs a cloth from her magic bag and covers the snake, confining it with a knot. Walking through a path, she smells something burning, while Sora freaks out over it. She's curious as to what it is, and decides to check it out, only to see a caravan that had been completely wrecked by some bandits. She decides to hide Sora in her bag, and when she looks in further, she's horrified to find some men who'd been bloodied and battered. No way bandits would do this. This had to be the work of monsters. Ivy decides to make a run for it, until she's far away, panting and completely out of breath. She spots Letum and makes her way into town. And even though she's safe now, she feels like she has to tell someone. She spots the sign for a town hall, and even though she's nervous, she enters. The people from town hall ask the little boy, Ivy, what she's got there. She tells them it's a snake she caught, but that's not important. Ivy then tells them about the people she found passed out on the way here, the cart that was on fire, and the people who had been attacked and didn't survive. A man walks up to Ivy to get a better account of what had happened, hoping the attackers were only bandits. But after hearing about how the horses were also killed instead of stolen, he reluctantly agrees it was most likely a monster attack. The man then tells everyone to locate the monsters as soon as possible, and he thanks Ivy, explaining she'll be rewarded as soon as the monsters are found. And the woman explains in this town, people are rewarded for giving monster tip-offs to town hall. It's to give the town countermeasures before people can get hurt. The woman gives Ivy a document to claim her reward once the task has been completed. Ivy then goes to sell the snake she caught, and the buyer tells her it's a rare female and offers to give her 3 giddle. Ivy has to count, and has since learned the value is equivalent to 300 dal, or selling 30 field mice. She walks out happy with her collected money, and now's the time to find food for Sora. She of course heads to another dump, and becomes so happy as she finds over 21 magic bags. She's at first concerned, unsure of how she can carry them all, so she starts trying to fill the magic bags with each other. Then she starts organizing them, with bags on the left unable to carry other magic bags, followed by magic bags that can carry 1 magic bag, then magic bags that can carry 2 magic bags, and all the way on the right, magic bags that can carry 3 magic bags. She eventually finishes organizing them and heads back into town to buy more potions. The man from earlier greets her and thanks her as they were able to verify the monster tip right away. Turns out the monsters were ogres and an ogre king based on the tracks they had found. They ended up sending high-ranked adventurers to go slay them, and no one is to leave the village until the monsters have been defeated. He then tells Ivy to head to town hall and collect her reward. And after handing in her document, the town hall lady hands her over 5 giddle. Oh wow, the snake was worth 3 giddle or 30 mice. At 5 giddle, that's 50 mice's worth. But it's not over, as she's also awarded 2 ladol, One ladle is 10 gittle, so altogether she's collected 280 field mice worth of money. Later that night, she chills for the evening, eating berries and feeding Sora in her bag. She'll have to stay in town until the monster hunt is over, but she's happy regardless. With Sora still at her side, she decides to rest for the night. On this nice morning, we turn to Ivy finding one of her rat-catching traps broken, wondering if a bigger animal had stepped on and snapped it. This leaves Ivy concerned that she won't catch anything to sell for money. Her past self reminds Ivy of the tip reward she got for reporting the goblin attack the other day, so she opens her bag thinking she might be okay for a little while, but she'd rather save it for a rainy day. Sora then spots something and begins to move. Ivy has to chase after him. It's faint, but Ivy can also sense something. It's the smell of blood? The two enter past a brush, and Ivy is astonished to see an injured beast. She's unsure of what it is, but senses magical energy within it. She opens her monster compendium and learns it's called an Adondola. It's an incredibly ferocious, rare monster. It growls at Ivy, giving her a little fright, but drops its head down, worn out from all the injuries it has sustained. Ivy gets saddened knowing it's going to die soon. She pets the Adondola, consoling it, telling the monster she was also scared when she was on the precipice of death. She knows she can't do anything for the beast, but promises to stay by its side. However, watching the two's sad interaction, Sora jumps up and envelops the beast in his body. Then his healing properties begin to kick in, and suddenly, the Adondola is injury-free. Post-healing, Ivy remarks that Sora talks a little faster now, with his signature phrase. Then the beast stands before them, and even though Ivy is afraid, she has nothing to fear, as the Adondola is a giant floof that caresses her lovingly, which is crazy because according to her book, it takes a team of at least 5 high-ranked adventurers to defeat this ferocious monster. But the big beast smiles warmly as Ivy pets it. As the three begin their stroll together, Ivy wonders if this means she has one more friend now. She pets the beast, saying it's time to name him. She stares at the sunlit sky, and she's got it. Your name is Ciel. It means sky in a different language, but she doesn't quite know how she knew that. She then makes her joyous introductions for her and Sora to Ciel, and the three continue their trek until Ivy senses some people. She decides to hide Sora in her magic bag, but there's no way Ciel is going to fit in there, and it wouldn't be good for people to see him. Ciel displays his intelligence, however, and dashes away to hide in the bushes. She arrives at the gate of the next town and sees the tall guard, who seems a little scary. Even the passing traveler seemed to be scary to Ivy as well, with Sora also freaking out for some reason. The traveler tries to enter the town, but the guard stops him, asking what business he has with Tame village. The traveler tells him he's visiting a friend. However, when the guard asks what the friend's name is, the man nervously responds, Zoliot, but the guard says there's no one in the village by that name. The traveler begins to sweat with even more nervousness, saying, actually, it's Lizola, with the guard clearly not accepting it. The traveler then says, no, it might have been, Maklua, but the guard isn't buying his BS. He throws the traveler against the wall and raises his sword, slashing the traveler's bag to see a magic bag fall out. And in the magic bag, the guard finds illicitly brewed alcohol and grabs the traveler by the neck, and has his fellow guard, Velavera, escort the traveler to jail. Ivy, now realizing the traveler was a bad man, wondered if Sora somehow knew that already, and he answers with his poo 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 as if to confirm. Ivy is still scared of the red-haired guard, wondering if she should just give up on passing through Tame village. But she knows with the guard staring at her, running away would only be suspicious. She tries to walk through, but freaks out when she gets stopped. The guard, of course, has never seen her before and wants to know who her parents are. She begins to answer, only to see the guard's fearsome glare meeting her, making her face grow pale. Ivy notices a mantis land on his shoulder. However, the glare was all in her head, as we see he has a more relaxed look. She mentions the bug, causing the man to freak out a little and scurry it away, and thanks her once it's off his shoulder. She tries to walk away, but gets stopped again, because the guard isn't done inquiring about her. She tells him she's from Tame village, and the guard is shocked to hear she came from so far away, but apparently he heard things are quite tough in Tame right now. Ivy has no idea what he means by that, but the guard kneels towards her, reassuring Ivy that now that she's in Tame, she'll be safe, and as long as she becomes an adventurer, she can earn enough to eat. But the only thing she thinks of when walking away is what happened to her home village. She stares in awe at how active this big village is. She heads to the butcher, offering to make a deal for selling field mice and other wild game. The butcher is fine with it, but warns Ivy that if she hunts alone, she might be attacked attacked by Nanoshi monsters. And as she leaves the butcher, Ivy wonders if Nanoshi had actually broken her field mouse traps. She heads to the adventurer's clearing so she can set up a resting space, but gets scared again seeing the big supervisor guard. The guard tells Ivy she'll be safe in this direction, but she needs this permit, otherwise she won't be permitted to come here. Ivy then sets up a resting tarp and crashes on the pleasant feeling ground. Looking in front of her are bigger tents, implying there are mid-level adventurers there, while in her area, the smaller tents imply novice adventurers. Seeing the tents made her wish she had one, since she'd have to worry less about the weather, and of course, she'd be able to let Sora out of the bag. But come to think of it, she still has the tip reward, doesn't she? Ivy heads back into town to do some tent shopping and finds a secondhand tent shop. She turns from reading the shop sign and is frightened to see the town guard asking if she's looking for a tent. But he also gets a little startled, and the other guard, Villavera, scolds him, saying not to scare the children, with Ivy telling them she has no tent. The guards wonder if she had gotten driven out of her village with nothing. Then Villavera remarks the difficulties in Latomi must be real. The red-haired guard finally introduces himself as Ogto and tells her he's going to take Ivy to a different shop and begins to drag her there. However, after Villavera scolds Ogto for being too rough since he's a much bigger guy, he begins to apologize and Villavera confirms his friend to be dense, but truly a kind-hearted man. So, they head to another tent shop, and when the shop owner hears Ivy is from Lotomi village, he feels sorry for her. She then asks for the price for a tent, and wonders if 5 Gedal would be enough, which if y'all remember, it's the equivalent of selling 50 field mice. She tells them she has 2 ladle, which is equivalent to 200 field mice, and everyone is shocked to hear this little boy has so much money. So Ivy explains in the last village, she gave them a monster tip and received this monetary reward as a tip, and everyone commends her on her lucky find. The shop owner then offers this light, sturdy, new model of tent. Afterwards, Ivy marks her tent with the kanji for Sora, but how did she know that? Perhaps it's a memory from her past life. The shop owner then hands Ivy a new model of magic bag. It's special in that whenever Ivy takes something out of it, no one can see what's inside, giving her stuff an extra layer of security. She then says her farewells to the guards and begins the setup of her wonderful new tent. It seems quite spacious for little Ivy. She pulls out her sleeping little slime and wakes him to see their new tent, causing him to jump around in joy over their new resting conditions. She reflects over the many people that have been so nice to her during her travels, and is happy she was finally able to get something she feels is akin to a house again. She wonders if she's truly deserving of all the good fortune she's come upon, but lets the painful words and treatment from her village go to tell Sora they should celebrate their new tent. So how does Ivy like to celebrate? Well, by going to a trash dump, of course. She heads outside her tent, and a rough-looking guy from a group of adventurers sees Ivy and shows a malicious smile. The group walks over to her, and the big guy accuses Ivy of being a thief, with his buddy saying, "Yeah, it's actually his tent." He then accuses her out loud for stealing his tent, and tells her to give it back. I get what these guys are doing, and I hate them. Ivy affirms she didn't steal it. She bought it herself, of course. But the big guy calls Ivy a liar and tells her there's no way she could buy this, grabbing a hold of her outfit trying to bully her. And the women shame her for having a terrible upbringing, being such a liar. Ivy tries to run away, and the man grabs her and shouts at Ivy saying he'll kill her, which brings her to tears. However, the clearing guard comes over to ask what's wrong, telling them that anyone who causes trouble will be charged a fine and thrown out. The rough guy tells the guard that Ivy stole his tent and that they're the victims. But of course, the guard asks where their evidence is. The smug adventurer then says, "Look at the kid. There's no way this little boy could buy a tent like this. It's just common sense." But the guard comes over and seizes the man's hand, freeing Ivy. The guard tells him the tent belongs to the little boy. And even with the adventurer still trying to accuse Ivy, the guard confirms this is an item bought from Old Man Lag's shop, and that Captain Ogto and Vice Captain Velavera of the Latome Village Watch were the ones that brought Ivy there, making the adventurers shrink back in astonishment as they'd been caught. Yeah, you losers are about to get it now. The guy with the bandana gets nervous and says, "Whoops, I must have been mistaken. It's not actually my tent." Then the guard tells the adventurers he'd like to hear their story in more detail and tells them they're going to be detained. But the leader tries to reassure them they just had the wrong idea. However, with the guard cracking his knuckles, it's definitely over for these guys, telling them if they try to run, he'll show no mercy. The adventurers try to split, so the guard whistles, summoning the rest of his team, and now the adventurers are surrounded. with the main guard pinning the bandana adventurer down. The adventurer group leader and one of the girls makes a run for it, with the guards chasing after them. Afterwards, the clearing guard leader checks on Ivy's condition, asking if she's hurt, and Ivy thanks him for saving her. He then hands Ivy a potion as consolation for having to deal with such a scary incident, and she's excited because it's sparkling brand new. So new, the refraction from the sunlight makes the blue shine on her face. The guard then leaves to go interrogate the criminals, and Ivy is happy for how things turned out. Later that night, Ivy celebrates, surrounding Sora and tons of potions. As she's about to eat, she wonders what's wrong, as Sora isn't devouring the potions like usual. But when she realizes he has his sights set on the new potion, she tells him no, because she needs to keep it for herself. He just looks up at her, acting all cute, then begins whining because he really wants it, ending their night peacefully as they argue back and forth about who gets the potion. Another beautiful day comes and Ivy stretches, excited for the day, then looks at little Sora, who's excited for more hunting. She says goodbye to the clearing guard on the way out, and as she exits the city, it seems one guard after another greets Ivy by name, and she seems concerned with each one since she'd never spoken to any of these guys before. Everyone seems to know who she is. Outside the town, it seems a monster had destroyed Ivy's hunting trap again. Oh man, they'll never catch anything at this rate. She then senses an unusual presence. Oh, it's Ciel with several bunnies in his mouth. He sets them down on the ground, making Ivy ask if they're for her, and Ciel growls in an affirming tone. So she thanks him and the two embrace in loving care. Looks like it's 9 rabbits. Ivy is pumped to start dressing them to sell. Over by a creek, Ivy begins to work while Ciel and Sora play. She broke a sweat preparing the little meat pouches. It took long enough for Sora and Ciel to fall asleep. She wakes him up because she still has to sell the meat. Staring at Ciel, Ivy is surprised he's so docile and kind, considering he's supposed to be a rare, dangerous, Adondola monster. He goes in for more pats, and after they say goodbyes for now, Ciel growls like a regular cat. On their way back to town, Ivy tells Sora he looks much stronger now. Before, he used to look like he could disappear at any time, all while he jumps on a stick and tumbles over, getting dizzy, making Ivy remark that his clumsy side hasn't really changed. Ivy heads to the butcher to sell the rabbit meat, and the butcher is pleased since the meat is very fresh and without gamey scent. The butcher is happy because the rabbits must have been caught without taking any organ damage. Ivy replies nervously that she caught them in a trap, leaving the butcher a little curious because the rabbits tend to struggle in traps, which generally degrades the flavor. But of course, Ivy can't divulge into the fact that she tamed a super rare Adondola who caught them for her. The butcher hands over Ivy's payment and is happy for Ivy to bring over quality meats like this anytime. As Ivy walks, relieved she was able to sell something because of Ciel's work, one of the guards brightly asks if she was able to make some good money today. Another one greets her, asking if she faced any danger against the Noshi monsters. And another asks if she caught a lot of good things to eat. Her voice gets a little worn out, having to deepen it to sound like a boy, so she hides in an alley to avoid any more idle chatter with the guards. Until she gets caught by Villavera, who asks her why she's hiding in a place like this. While they walk together, he's realized all the trouble Captain Ogto has caused her. He made the nice gesture of telling the other watchmen that if an adventurer named Ivy is in trouble, be sure to help him out, making sure everyone knew that Ivy was young and hard-working, so fellow guards should look out for him whenever they can. Ogto is a little blockheaded, because when he gets an idea in his head, no one can stop him, but he really means well. Villavera sees Ivy off, as he has other things to do. Ivy continues her walk, sighing as she appreciates the thought of Ogto's gesture, but she doesn't like to stand out. However, with the guards waving at her, she's cheery, thinking this town might be a good place. Something then catches Ivy's attention. It's Zaro fruit, a specialty from her hometown of Latomi, but they're super expensive here. The fruit seller tells her it's taken him a long time to procure these, as Latomi is the only place that can grow these fruits. But with a super bad crop this year, it's been particularly hard to buy them. The man learns Ivy is from Latomi village and asks where her parents are, but when Ivy explains she's traveling alone, the man remarks it must be that idiot village head's fault. However, Ivy wonders what he means. He explains that fortune teller Luba has always protected the Zaro crops of Latomi village, as the time of harvesting the fruit was always tricky, because if the timing was missed even by a little, the Zaro fruit wouldn't be good for selling. Zaro fruit is Latomi's main source of income. That's why the villagers loved and respected Mistress Luba. The man heard, however, that the village head couldn't stand that, so when Luba had fallen ill, he hadn't given her any medicine. That's what the people say, anyways. This makes Ivy shocked, thinking back to when she had snuck into the church to hear some women talking about how strange it was that Luba had died of a cold at this time of year. The man also explains there's a rumor the village head is trying to blame it all on a child, making Ivy's face grow dark as she remembers the horrible words the village head proclaimed about her, the starless, cursed child. The man continues on about how with the passing of Luba, Latomi village's Zaro harvest fell, and they fell into a financial hardship. So the head has been trying to reduce the number of mouths to feed, and that some of the villagers rebelled, took their families, and left the village. Others who defied the head were thrown out, a complete disaster. He then asks why Ivy left, and she explains her parents sided with the head, and that caused problems, clutching her jacket tight at the thought of the horrific betrayal from her family. The man then feels bad for Ivy, so he hands her a Zaro fruit, something that she's thankful for. She sits inside her tent with Sora, reflecting on the events that had happened in Latomi village. Despite all the mistreatment, she's still worried about what's happened to her family. To which I say, forget him and I hate him. And I think the deflating Sora agrees with me too. Her family cast her aside, and now she's in an unfamiliar place with people she doesn't know. But now she's finally having fun again, especially now that she has both Sora and Ciel, Captain Ogto and Villavera. The whole town here in Latome has been so kind to her, and she also still has her past self who speaks to her, and now even a small home too. She wonders if this is what people call happiness. So Sora bounces up in joy, and as per usual, Ivy has no idea what he's saying. She giggles because she doesn't understand, but in a way she does understand, because they're friends after all. She takes a bite and enjoys the taste of the Zaro fruit, the same as she used to have when she was little, the same flavor that Luba protected. She then thinks of when Luba had told her to head to the town neighboring the royal capital, but if she found a place that she'd like to live in forever while on her journey, she could stay there as well. It's another wonderful day, and Ivy does her usual rounds of good mornings with all the town's watchmen. She heads outside for some good hunting, setting up several traps, being conscious of putting them in places Nanoshi won't step on. She then heads with Sora to a trash fill because he needs something to eat as well, but suddenly stops because she senses some people, so she has Sora jump in the bag. And oh my god, it's the two adventurers who bullied her earlier that escaped. The man blames her for getting his friends arrested the other day, even though they're the ones who bullied her and she didn't really do anything. As Ivy backs away from the approaching thug, he's got a vicious smile, recalling Ivy has a rare slime with her, and tells her if she wants to leave safely, to hand the slime over. Ivy refuses because Sora is her friend, and the girl adventurer tells Ivy that if she doesn't, she'll be going through something more painful. The man stands above Ivy, telling her she's going to be beaten to a pulp, and Ivy stares in fear with the big adults about to thrash her. She makes a run for it, and as the thugs chase after her, she makes a quick left and gets the man caught in one of her traps. The girl adventurer mocks him, and he angrily cuts the rope off himself, exclaiming the boy will not get away alive. The girl then appears in front of Ivy, and the man picks Ivy up, with the mugging about to commence. When Ivy struggles, the girl grabs a hold of her as well, telling her to stop moving, but then the thug girl becomes nervous, as they see that Ciel has appeared before them. They put Ivy down and back away at the sight of the majestic Adondola, who's ready to maul their disgusting, disgraceful faces alive. And when Ciel roars, the girl faints, and the man quickly dashes away while Ciel chases after him. Ciel is so fast, however, catching up to the man was inevitable, and Ciel brings the man back like he's the rabbit prey he had caught earlier. Yeah, that's what you get, you pathetic, worthless, trash human beings. Ciel comes in towards Ivy for head pats. Another day with a job well done. And Ivy stares at the thugs, wondering if Ciel had done this to the rabbits the other day. Ivy senses more people and has Ciel hide. She hears a familiar voice call out, so she calls the voice over to her. It's Captain Ogto and Villavera, who check on Ivy to make sure she isn't hurt. While patrolling, they heard a monster's roar and human screams, so they hurried over. Ivy gestures to the two wanted criminals from the other day, leaving Ogto and Villavera flabbergasted. At Ogto's place, he goes over a report with her about those two adventurers, and apparently they've all been under investigation for other potential crimes they'd committed. They've been stealing money and goods from young adventurers and using false accusations. Several times their crimes had been reported to the Adventurers Guild, but it had been difficult to put together evidence against them. Also, the two they had caught today were specifically wanted for murder, and their punishment will be to now become slaves with no chance of emancipation. I'ma say, serves them right. The other two caught also got sentenced to slavery, but for a shorter term, and Ivy is relieved to finally be able to rest easy. Ogto brought her here for a particular reason. Since she helped with their capture, she'll be receiving monetary rewards, which shocks Ivy because she's getting paid 2 ladel and 3 gadol, and loses her mind realizing she's being paid 2,300 field mice worth, and with all the money she has right now, she's got a net worth of 5,000 field mice. He hands Ivy the money and tells her if she hasn't already, she should go make a bank account. Carrying all this money can be a little dangerous, so they head to the trade guild. That way Ivy can make a deposit, where the banker has her sign in a drop of blood. Ogto reads her contract and learns Ivy is 8 years and 11 months old, and is shocked to learn she's turning 9 soon. He thought Ivy was 6 or 7, but she exclaims she's not that little. She then deposits her money and receives a plate. Outside, Ogdo explains with the plate, she can withdraw funds at any trade guild in any village or town. Ivy thanks Ogto for all the help, and as he laughs, enjoying himself, Villavera appears angrily as he's been looking for his captain because Ogdo never said where he was going. Ogdo looks at him nervously saying, "Oh, didn't I tell you?" But of course he didn't. The three of them walk into the town, and Ogdo asks if Ivy has ever eaten the town's signature dish yet. It's Nanoshi skewers, something that Ogdo will treat Ivy to anytime she wants. And she smiles, looking forward to the delicious meal. She gets a head pat from Ogdo and wonders how long it's been since she was patted on the head. They then head to an eating spot, and when the chef sees Ivy, she jokes, asking if that's Ogdo's secret child, making him laugh and remark, "Adorable, isn't he?" As they sit down at their table, Ivy stares in awe seeing how big the Nanoshi skewers are. She gets a little nervous hearing Ogdo order 10 skewers for each of them, but he claims they're so good it'll be easy to eat this much. However, Villavera knows his captain is going overboard, not considering Ivy's current child build. The food arrives and Ivy has a bite of the delicious skewer. Villavera remarks the chef here is so skilled, anyone at the royal capital would love to eat it as well. And the chef explains she has a 4-star cooking skill, only 1 star under the highest at 5. Ivy grows a little sad remembering her own current star ranking. Ogdo then says the 2 criminals they caught today both had 3-star sprinting skills. Definitely why it was so hard to catch them before. He then asks what Ivy's current skill is, and Villavera remarks if her skill is a good fit, she could join the Watchmen here in the future. She sadly explains she's a tamer, and Ogdo thinks it's a wonderful skill. He then asks how many stars, and she gets nervous, shaking at the feeling of having to mention it. Ogdo and Villavera might have caught on to who she is, having fled from Latomi village. So Ogdo pats her and says, sometimes people with a lot of stars are totally useless too. Those thugs from today are a fine example of detriments to society. Villavera agrees, as many people with stars still fail to make use of their skill and end up taking the wrong path in life. It's the job of the Watchmen to keep such people under control. Ivy stares surprised, as Ogdo remarks there are lots of 1-stars who are praiseworthy people, and that Ivy should be proud of all that she's done. By the end of the night, they wave their goodbyes, with her thinking about how she doesn't even have 1 star. And the next day, she says her goodbyes to the 2 as she plans to continue fulfilling her promise to Luba to head to the town next to the royal capital. Ogdo says anywhere she goes to mention his name, that way she can get by easier. They tell her to come back anytime. Villavera then tells Ogdo the report he got from Latomi village about all the 1-star children, with Ivy being not on the list at all, and the only kid who had fled being a starless 8-year-old girl. And Ogdo scratches his head, knowing that he couldn't unfortunately earn Ivy's trust enough for her to tell him the truth. They both understand how the events in Latomi must have deeply wounded her heart, and hope one day Ivy will be willing to open up to the both of them. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy Ivy started to find people who are willing to accept her. Who knows what she'll come across as she continues her journey to the capital. Find out next week by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. For now though, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy Tea. I'll see you all in the next one.